Welcome to episode 17 of the BJJ101 Storing podcast. Today we have an awesome guest, Petrus. How do I pronounce your last name?
Vanderwalt.
Petrus Vanderwalt. Yeah, that's a very it's Dutch, isn't it?
That's South African, but it's Dutch South African.
Yeah, Dutch South African. Yeah.
The proper way to pronounce it is Vanderwalt.
Vanderwalt.
And my name is like Petrus.
Petrus, which means the rock.
Yes, the rock.
The rock, I know.
Exactly
and I won't even let you try my second name because you've got to be a good spitter. So my second name is Gerhardus.
Gerhardus. Very good. Is this like in Afrikaans or is this in...
that's just the way it's pronounced in Afrikaans. Yeah.
Okay, well.
Gerhardus. Yeah.
Boy, it's funny, like, we just talk about, like, we had this conversation before, Anto and I, and then we talked to you, like, that we had this dream of doing a documentary with you because you're such an interesting guy, you have such a...
rich life.
Amazing life story, you know what I mean? Like, you've been in so many countries, you've done so many things that... like a super interesting guy. We thought about it before. Like, man, we should do a documentary on Netflix with like 3 chapters on this guy, man.
Because I remember for years and years we walked in the doors and we keep on talking about we've got to do documentary,
We really dream about it. We think it's been a bit like amazing, you know, and we're so happy that to have you here today because we can actually get to know a little bit better and it'll be super interesting, man. I'm looking forward to it.
And it feels, for me, it's like, because I haven't trained for quite a while because of COVID and injuries. When I walked in the door, it just felt like home again. It's good.
Good to hear
you guys again.
Good to hear. Yeah, no, that's true, man.
Well, man.
As soon as I heard my name, Petrus, I just had a big smile on it.
Yeah, calling out when you're in the car before. So we always start with a fairly like generic, basic question, but what we try to ask is like just talk about yourself a little bit, your childhood, your upbringing, your early life. You know, where you lived, what you used to do for work or what roles you used to have, and also kind of where you got introduced to martial arts. That's generally what we start with.
Yeah, well, I'm 61 now.
Yeah.
And I lived up to 1993 in South Africa. Brought up on a place called Queensborough, Malvern, which is just outside Durban, which is on the east coast. Yeah. So we're about 10 minutes away from the main city itself, where we grew up. And in my primary school and that, like, we used to, like, there's a dispute there, you make a big circle and you just have a big punch-up.
Yeah.
And there's always this one guy there, there's a big tall, I'll never forget his face, big tall guy, and he used to pick on everybody, you know. And every day I used to go tell him, listen, I'll meet you after school. And this guy used to beat me every time, because I didn't know how to fight or what to do. But I just felt it wrong that this guy kept on picking on all these other people, you know. And then when I went to high school, I had fights, got beaten up, all this stuff. And then I saw this post about guys kicking and flying and all this stuff. I said, hey, I'm going to try this thing, you know. And after, because those days we were pretty poor, my parents, and couldn't afford things like that, you know. So after a while, my parents allowed me to go do karate, you know.
How old were you at the time when you went to go start karate?
11 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so... And then I'll never forget my first fight with the karate. Well, we were busy playing basketball and these 2 twins pushed me over and we had one that had a big fight. So straight I just went like, boom, boom, knocked him out and that was it, you know.
Oh, this works, man. The karate works.
And, because I hit this guy and knocked him out, you sort of you get like a reputation, so everybody sort of leaves you alone from then on, you know. Like if a fight does happen, like I know that maybe the guy can beat me up, but they hesitant because they know what I can do. And karate at that stage was like, if you did it, you were like the Bruce Lee in the neighborhood, you know. Everybody's like big shit scared of you, you know. And but still, my instructor I had in those days was because we had nothing in South Africa, they had to go to Japan to learn.
Yeah.
And in those years in the 70s and the 60s, when they trained like full on. It was like, if you didn't
full contact,
like full contact, you know. Where it's supposed to be like semi-contact, this sport. And so every time he comes back, we'll just bam, bam, knock the shit out of each other, fight. And calluses, like even today, I can still feel the calluses in my lips from the amount of times.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't walk off the floor bleeding, you didn't have a good session, you know. And but nowadays you can't do that because you get sued and all that, you know.
Yeah.
And those are really good days, and really made the karate, not karate, but made you as a strong person, you know.
100%, yeah. You know what I mean? Iron sharpens iron kind of idea. and we talk about this a lot of the time with lots of martial arts. Like the beginning stages of all martial arts came from real fighting, real warfare, all this stuff. It's only now that it's become more commercialized and fitting into society where it can be, helpful for all people or be open to all people, that it's become more, that commercial idea. Yeah.
And it's also become too much of a sports martial arts, karate, and all the other things. A lot of people emphasize on trying to score points,
Yeah.
And like even in our style, we when we have tournaments, we don't have age or weight division. It's just the other black belt or that's it. Yeah. And the thing is, and there's only one rule in our one, is that no excessive contact. So you can't go up the guy and just break his jaw. Then you get the warning, disqualified. But if you're fighting a guy and you hit him and he clashes and he breaks his jaw, whatever, you could end up winning the fight because it's a perfect technique. That's what I like about our karate. And if they do tournaments, because it's real life, you only got one opportunity, and you got to get it right first time. So anyway, from those days, and then when I did my apprenticeship in was it 80s? No, late 70s, 79 I started. And then I went to the border war, which is
what did you do an apprenticeship in?
I did as a toolmaker. Basic injection molds, yeah. But I first started off in a mine working as a machinist, and then when I left that I went straight into toolmaking. Yeah. So anything out of plastic, like blow molds and the caps, so anything you see out of plastic, I used to make the mold for it, and then I just pumped them out. And so, and then after my start of my karate, and like when I got a bit more mature in age, and I tried different things. I tried like boxing, wrestling, judo. I enjoyed the judo. The boxing I didn't quite enjoy because every time I fought the guy in the ring, I kept on kicking him, because it's just natural, So then I thought, I better not do this because they want to stop me from kicking, and I want to just, when I'm boxing, I see a gap, I want to kick, So I gave that away, and plus, I don't like to get hurt, In karate, you avoid getting punched, So you a lot of times you just defend when you see open, and then you attack type of thing, So you don't waste your energy and all that.
Mashido style.
Yeah, and that's when I started karate. When I started jiu-jitsu in 2013, you kept on telling me, slow down, because karate is just full speed, And I got 0 to 0 to puffed in jiu-jitsu every time, It took me a long time to realize, hey, the speed is not for jiu-jitsu, And
But Petrus, have you, in that time in South Africa, did you live through apartheid?
Yeah, but we did, but it didn't affect me because all my friends and all the working mates, even karate, we had black people with us, all the time.
But it was a region that wasn't affected that you were at, or
no, it's just the way. Like a lot of people, the international brought it more worse than what it was. Obviously, there were separate toilets and separate areas for the whites to sit and the blacks to sit, but that sort of faded away pretty quick when Mandela became the headlight of everything. But before that, before him, and that, like I said, people say, how can you train? No black people are allowed to do this. And I thought, the day I started, there were black people fighting next to me doing the same training and things like that, So in a way, it didn't affect me because it was there, but I wasn't aware of it because I just carried my normal life.
Yeah, so a lot of the activities that you were involved in and working with and stuff, you were already working in an integrated kind of situation.
But did you leave, how old are you at that time? Like did you, so at that time you were there, that you're talking about it right now, was that right at the end of the apartheid or it was worse before?
No, because like I said, when I started karate in 1971, 1971, it sort of, at that stage, it was starting to break up, so before that, like in the 60s, and that was really bad. But I sort of got born in a stage where it was slowly fading out, It was still there, but like I said, because it didn't affect me, and I wasn't made aware of it until the international
coverage
and focus. And we didn't have TV or anything like that, so we didn't know what the outside world was talking to us about then, because TV only came in late in South Africa, And when it did come, we had this test pattern. We were just watching it for days and days and days until they pushed a button and it came on.
So what you're saying is that they had the same rights, absolutely the same rights. Like, could they vote? Could they go any club? Could they go any school or not?
No, none of that. They weren't allowed to. No, but in the sport arena, they were, especially karate, there was no apartheid there.
I think martial arts is amazing at that. Like, you have all cultures. It's like like it's super open for that. It doesn't have discrimination. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of any culture, it doesn't matter.
I think that's especially because like you're saying in South Africa at the time, or where martial arts or things are becoming like the beginning stages of the art itself. You don't have the ability to go, all right, you guys can't train, only we can. You're going to have 2 people training there. So you just want to get as many people involved as possible to build that art, that martial art, that thing up. It's the same with jiu-jitsu here in Australia. When people first started, there was 2 or 3 people at classes. And a lot of the time, those classes were in someone's garage. Even Hickson talks about that going to the US. You know what I mean? It's someone's garage and he's doing, 10 privates a day or whatever in a garage with somebody. Like, the initial stages of building anything up, man, you can't afford to say no to people, man. You can't afford to do it.
And the thing is, like, our instructors, they went to Japan every year and lived there for like 6 months, 3 months a year. So they were used to
different cultures, different
training.
Stuff,
so when they brought it back, it wasn't like apartheid because they were used to training.
They would just go there and training with Japanese.
Yeah, so
people,
when they came back, the door was open to everybody. So anybody walked in the door was allowed to train. So there was no. But yes, on the other side of it, schools and buses and all that stuff.
Separate.
It's separated.
It's separate. Yeah. And the like for them, for example, could they go to your house, for example?
Yeah, that can.
You could invite them, and they could actually go to your house.
Yeah, but the thing is, because at that stage I was young in it, so obviously I didn't invite them to my place because I was a young fella then. And when I went working, again I was like by myself in like a unit, so there wasn't no. You come to my house, we have a barbecue type of thing. So in the workforce, we would work with them, and then on weekends I used to go to their places because they used to have like
barbecues and stuff.
Big meals and things like that. And so they always used to
invite you.
Hey, come over, go for a meal or something. Especially like on the Indian side,
Yeah.
And meals, they make good meals, Indians.
So is there a large Indian community in South Africa?
Yeah, they're equivalent to, I think when I left there were 5 million whites, 5 million Indians, and about 5 million coloured, which was the mix between the black and the white.
Yeah.
And then there were about 16 million Africans.
Yeah.
Their proportion to the whites and Indians was about the same.
Okay.
So Petrus, there was actually armed fight to have this freedom at the time.
Yeah, so what happened was there was a few parties like the ANC, the FLAPU, and there's another organisation. They were all trying to fight, like South West Africa, they were trying to fight for their freedom there because they wanted to be part of the government and all that stuff. And then the ANC, which was the Mandela side, he wanted to, same thing, get rid of apartheid and come in. But the way he went about it was wrong because he was on the militant side of it. So he was more aggressive as he planting bombs and things like that. And when they started doing that, and then they decided, well, the border is quite big, so we'll just go across to make them because they were coming from Angola in, they're going to train by the Russians and the Cubans, all that, to come into South Africa and do all the bombings. So we had to protect the borders to stop them coming in to South Africa. So that war ended up, I don't know, must have been about 20 years or something. I could be wrong, but it was quite a long border war.
Yeah.
And
were you engaged on these fights back on the day? Did you have like a side where you defended?
Yeah, so basically the whole of Southwest Africa was divided up into sections. And in South Africa those years you had to do 2-year compulsory
military service.
You had to do it, unless you were going to study or something like that, or mental illness or something like that. So what happens is in Southwest Africa they divide up all in sections. So each company, which was made up of platoons and sections, had a certain section. They had to look after to stop the terrorists from coming through and that.
So are the terrorists like associated with certain political groups or parties or whatever, and they're just doing activities to support their group or something like that?
Well, that's the thing. They were trying to put fear in the European, in the white people's thing, so they can squash the apartheid things, so they could come in type of thing and then not take over, but try to share the government. But it took a while before that happened, because while they were bombing and that, it wasn't going to happen while the fighting was going on. And then I think, I can't remember how it ended, but I think they had a truce with Mandela coming out, and then they stopped it and all this, and then he stopped all the bombing and all that. But in those 2 years when I was there, it was full on warfare, Like, if you don't shoot them, they're going to shoot you, So, and like a lot of times you'll see on TV, like the little kids getting shot and all that type of stuff. But when you're in a war situation, if a person, whether they're 10-year-old or 40-year-old, aiming a gun at you, you've got an option but to shoot them, because otherwise you're going to die. So in a warfare, the age doesn't matter. They've got a weapon in the hand, you're going to die, either you or them.
How was the violence back in South Africa? Because a lot of people don't have, like a lot of people from Western countries, like, first world countries, they don't understand how different it is, the atmosphere, of living in a very unequal place, very where poverty is part of the community in a big time. So what was the violence back then as well like?
See, the Africans are very tribal, and even still today, the conflict that happens there is between different tribes. In the old days, they used to use spears and shields, now they use guns. But they are still like that. The Africans are because weapons are so easy accent, they've become a very violent society, Like, for example, they'll break in the house, shoot the whole family up just for a loaf of bread or something. But me being brought up with them, because they like to fight, I used to fight, so we used to have a lot of fights with them, but real fights, For example, I used to run a workshop, and I had a lot of Africans underneath me. And they wouldn't listen to me. They only listened to the Induna, which is the chief guy that looks after me. So what happens, for me to get the respect, I have to take the Induna outside. We have a big fight, I beat him up, and then they'll listen to me because I'll beat up the Induna, the chief. So if I say to the Induna, listen, this guy's causing me a problem, next day the guy comes in, cuts all over the black eyes. So they started respecting me because I'm sort of equal to their chief type of thing. So we had a lot of fights, even as kids. You had
to do like ritualistic things to kind of like earn respect or like your position within their like social hierarchy kind of thing. Yeah, because
that's the way that's the way the tribals do. The tribe fights against this tribe to dominate who's the strongest to get respect.
Yeah, it's like a very primal way of building the hierarchy. It's like, I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest, I'm the guy. That's how they used to pick the chieftains of tribes and stuff like that. This guy's the most dangerous, the biggest, the strongest, got the best leadership. Listen to him. And if you don't want to, all right, let's go and see.
I mean, even today, like you see, like the last president Zuma, that got kicked out for all the bribes and all the money and all the sexual stuff that happened against him. But for the Western world, we can't accept what he did. But his people do accept what he did, because for them, he's their leader. And as long as their leader's happy, they are happy. So as whatever the leader wants to do, they can do. They do not care, because that's their leader. He's entitled to do that. But us Westerners, we see what he's doing and we say, hey, you can't do that. That's wrong,
Yeah.
So the Western interfered in their
dynamic.
Their culture type of thing.
Yeah, it's very easy to sit with your understanding or perspective of things and say, oh, that's wrong and that's bad and this and that. And it's like, this is something that I talk about with jiu-jitsu all the time. And it's like, it doesn't matter what ideology you pick, what technique of thing you pick, what car you pick, whatever. There's always a positive thing about what you're doing, and there's always a negative thing about you doing. And because he's doing the things that you said, accepting bribes and doing all this stuff and blah blah, and they are wrong, but I'm sure there's some redeeming qualities to how he led people as well. It's no different than you pick a Western leader or a person in a Western country. There's things that they do that are redeeming, and there's things that they do that are just as horrible. Whether it's not as in your face, but it's, I made a deal with this pharmaceutical company to do this and that. There's always negativity in everything people do, man. There's no one way that's like, and people talk about that with warfare and things as well. Like, oh, it's horrible, and it's all right. So there's no warfare, there's no rules, everything's utopian. Have a look at how violent people can be. You have to, there's no perfect way to run anything. Anything you do, there's going to be a negative aspect to it. And I think it's really easy for people to sit in their bedroom, in front of their computer, on their phone, or whatever, and go and type it and criticize everything. Put yourself in that position and see how you're going to manage and run things. It's not that simple. Yeah. Life's not that simple.
And what I like about the Zulus are from my part of the world.
Yeah.
And what happens with them is, like, in the old days, the women used to work in the fields, the men used to go over the mountain, fight with other people, come home, get drunk, and that was their routine, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why they're not like violent, but they like to fight, you know, because that's their culture, you know.
But they're just reverting back to like the most natural instinct of human beings, which is, you know, the position of the women in their society is to care, to soothe, to mother children, to do all the feminine aspect of things, and then the men are to go and hunt and to go and find food and to be warriors and to protect their tribe and their city and stuff like that. And as violent as that is, and as primal as that is, we haven't changed much.
No, exactly.
And whether it's us sitting here now in this situation talking about all these things, like, we're no different to them. And the thing is at least they're just being honest about you know, what they want to do and how they behave. I think everybody, you know, especially in Western societies, they put their suit on and they, you know, pretend that they're above their biology and, you know, I'm this sophisticated thing. No, man, you're an ape as well. You used to drag your knuckles on the floor as well. Like, you haven't evolved that much over millions of years. You're very similar to them, and there's not much difference. And the thing is if they were put in that position, they'd probably be doing the same thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Petrus, because you have both experiences, I think I can relate to you on that sense. Like, you brought up with a system that not every kid that need to study or wanted to study can study. Not everyone that needs to go to a hospital will have a vacancy to go to the hospital, you know, which is absolutely different than here. It's a completely different reality. So, and now here for many years already, you know, you came earlier, you did your life here, etc. So you got both experience. Do you feel that when you look back now there, you feel a little bit more angry and more like you disagree a lot more because you had the ability to live in a system that things, yes, you have corruption, yes, you have, like, you know, agreements behind the desk, but at least the core things to make a community better, which they're supposed to do, works, you know what I mean? And there it doesn't, you know what I mean? It's a foundation that is actually failing, you know what I mean, in my opinion. Do you have this understanding as well?
Not on the angry side of it, no, because you move on. You know, you learn by mistakes and you move on.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Africans, especially young generation, they weren't even born in apartheid.
They use that as an excuse.
Yeah, and they still, it was apartheid. This is what I am now because of apartheid, you know. So they can't let go. So they're always walking around with a chip on their shoulder, you know. Whereas me, it's like, when I realized everything was wrong, what we did those days, and that, I didn't feel guilty about it because
you wasn't you really doing it. It was just.
I'm not necessarily talking about the apartheid. I'm talking more about the unequal world. Like, so have you been back to South Africa?
No.
Oh, that's different, because what I'm saying, like, when I go back to Brazil and I look at the reality there, or I look what everything, it's like a few transactions, you know what I mean, that I have to do, or the system. I have to use the system. You know, I have to go to the bank, or I have to go to the hospital, or I have to rent a car, which happened to me. And I read the contract. There's things that goes on that are like a completely disagree, you know what I mean? Because they're not the same as here. But you haven't been back. So maybe that's in that level you can't relate it to me. Yeah. It makes me really angry in a way.
Because for me, I still got this beautiful picture of what South Africa looks like. Anybody come back and tell me how bad it is, you know? Yeah. So I can't relate to that yet because I haven't been back. You know, pictures, what they tell me, I can't picture it. I can't picture it, but it's in my mind I have the beautiful
You kept good memories.
You have the memory of your childhood and enjoyment and all fun.
And I can understand these people because there's no dole system, or there's no money for them and things like that. What happens is the government promises, every time there's election, they promise them, they just promise them the world, you know, then they come out from the bush and they come into the cities suddenly it's not there for them, so they just live in the streets and things like that,
And then revert to violence and
because there's no money and all that.
got nothing else to do.
They have to steal.
Yeah, fundamentally, when the system fails, doesn't matter how you keep an eye, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to look at that, and you have your life. I'm well, I make money, my family's well, but eventually, like a kid that doesn't go to school is gonna put a gun in your head. Eventually, that will reflect on your well-being. You know what I mean? So that's why I get a bit angry sometimes, with that at the time.
And the thing is, like, I don't get angry, but what I see sometimes is like, they have all the infrastructure they have, but when they get upset with something, they go burn it down. They burn the schools down. And think, why do you do that?
True. True.
Yeah. You're fighting for it, but then they give it to you, and then you go burn it down.
That's no different than the stuff happening here in Australia, in Melbourne, and stuff like that, with people getting upset. It's like people have all this rage and anger, and they're unhappy about their situation, but they don't channel it into anything productive. They actually work against themselves. They're so caught up in emotion that they actually destroy the things that were beneficial to them, like schools, like the infrastructure of housing and businesses and blah blah. And a lot of the time, the people that you're destroying, man, they're in the same position as you. You know what I mean? They go in Melbourne, they smash all these car windows and break people's cars and burn things down and whatever will happen in the US. Same with COVID, man. You're just destroying people's businesses. Like, what's that got? That's not affecting the government. That doesn't change anything. And, like, everyone's always going to be critical of whatever governing system that's involved, because it's impossible to be perfect. It's impossible to make everybody happy, to make decisions that are going to benefit everyone. Now, most of the time, the problem is the people that are in those positions don't really consider the effect on the majority. They just think about what's going to be best for us and our group of people that are involved. And they make deals with people that they know that makes more money for them, and they're not really governing for everybody. They're just governing for themselves, and of course it's going to make people angry. You know what I mean? But what do? It's a very difficult system. Some people are doing the right thing, some people aren't, and it only takes a small percentage of people to ruin everything for everyone. Just like the people getting upset and angry and burning down schools and everything.
And especially today, you have so many different cultures living. In one thing, and their rules are different to their rules, and to try to come to happy media is pretty hard, I know a lot of people say, I went and roamed with the Romans do, but sometimes it's hard to get that culture out of them to fit in,
Absolutely.
Especially like the Africans, and I think it's Melbourne or down there somewhere. One of those
states,
like the Africans come there and they still have that thing of fighting, sorting their problems out, and come in here, and we call it gang wars, but it's just tribal wars. That family fighting against that family because over there they were different tribes. So we call them big gang fights and things like that. So,
Petrus, when you came to Australia, at what point you become a karate coach, or it was in South Africa?
I've been coaching since 79, because so in South Africa when I was training, there weren't many clubs around. There was just judo and karate, and they were far from each other. So when I went and did my apprentice up in a place called Newcastle, which is a mining town, steelwork place, there was one guy that was teaching there, and because I come from the city, I had a lot of more knowledge than he did, sort of thing. And so we shared the coaching role. So I've been teaching for yonks, we've been karate now 50 years. This is my 50th year doing karate. 50? So I've been coaching most of my life.
And you have a very important role in the karate history of Australia. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Australian karate community as well?
Yeah, please? Well, like in the beginning when I first came out, I came from a very harsh environment. Like the training was, you don't block, you end up with a black eye and blood all over the show.
No paddings? No paddings?
No padding, no gun guard, no. And then when I came here, we used to have like a Monday morning session where it was just full on,
Yeah.
So I thought I'd
Sparring.
So I thought I'd try to invite all brown and black belts from different organisations to come and train. So first night there was about 50 people, and it was really hard because we went full on, And Next week, there was only 10. Next week,
No.
because the Australians don't like that stage. They don't like that hardcore type of fighting from the karate side of it. But yeah, my teaching has been from the beginning, because like I say, in South Africa at that stage the dojos were so far apart, that for me to go train, I used to do that every weekend. I'd go down, travel 400 kilometers, go down for a week and train with my instructor, go back, reteach it, and that's was my cycle every weekend, traveling down to Durban to further myself,
Did you do competitions and stuff like that as well for karate at the time?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I've lost more than I won. So I've represented a province, which is Natal, which is like representing Queensland.
Yeah.
I've represented them in JKA, which is the affiliation that belongs to the Japan Karate Association.
Yeah.
Like they're one of the main ones that came out of Okinawa and one of the main traditional styles,
Yeah.
And there's 5 other ones, and they have competitions among themselves, which is called all styles type of thing.
Yeah.
And so that one I sort of won it, a few of those, and I've represented. But on a national level, I didn't do so well.
Yeah.
I used to travel a lot to Europe because I had a girlfriend in Switzerland. So I did a lot of tournaments in Switzerland and Europe, and one of my major achievements was I had a big, massive international thing. I think about 27 countries came together.
Yeah.
And we got in the final, one of the world champions, and I took him down to the last point and he beat me. So, but just to reach the finals, it was like, for me, like, wow.
100%.
And then Australia, same thing, and I did a lot of tournaments. But I'm not a very tournament-orientated person. I do it more for the kids, because some of them, they need some sort of
outlet for
to see what else is there, and they like to come up with medals and all this type of stuff, And so yeah, I did a lot of that. I even did the all styles, which was involved with kung fu, kick, every single style.
Yeah.
They come together and have a tournament, So I won that a few times, but eventually I stopped doing that because what happens, the more tournaments you do, the more your karate becomes weak, because you're just emphasizing on scoring points, but not on the self-defense side of it,
Yeah.
Like all the techniques I teach, you're not allowed to do that at tournaments because you get disqualified,
Yeah.
And in self-defense and street fighting, there's no rules, So, and you can't keep on teaching people, you don't do that, you're going to get disqualified. You go on the street and the guy hits you, and you can't hit him because you're not used to hitting. To stop the guy from fighting.
Yeah. So do you have like a similar kind of commonality with Eduardo? Like when, for example, like we've talked about this before, but your coaches would say things like, "Man, you went on the weekend to like this, party with all the friends, and that was a huge fight and whatever. Oh, did you break everything? Did you smash them? Did you win them? Whatever." And you're like, "Yeah, all right, good job." If it was wrong, he would be upset, maybe. Was it kind of like a similar style with the karate stuff?
Yeah, when I was because I was in a mining town and doing my apprentice, all that there.
How old were you at the time doing the apprenticeship?
I was about 17 or 18.
Okay, yeah.
And it must have been drinking age 18 because I had hundreds of pub fights.
Yeah.
Because of the mining town, you just get bored. So
Go
walk
to
in
the
the
pub.
pub and then the guy looks at you too long, and what are you looking at? A big fight. Chairs get thrown around.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of my karate I teach. I know it works because I've tried it in
real
street
situations.
fighting.
100%.
Like we don't stand there big fights. It's a way to develop with my hands down there, with my hands there. It's just how to from that position to hit someone hard enough to stop the fight, and to perfect that. Is, like in karate, hips is the most important part because that gives you speed, and then you tap in the core muscle to get you the power on the end of it, So in the street fight, you use your hips no matter what you do with your hands, and so if it's down or up, and that's how my street fighting involved from the karate side of it, But I didn't go there and stand, so let's have a fight. And again, like in a mining town, you get a reputation, and eventually no one wants to fight with you, because
You keep knocking everyone out, Petrus.
So there was one guy there. He was a boxer. He was a big guy, bigger than you, big guy. But, and this guy used to beat everybody else up. And I used to always go, every time I see him, I used to go look for a fight with him. He didn't want to fight me. I even jumped in his girlfriend, kissed his girlfriend. No, you just just look for because obviously the more beverages you have with
the
0.00 5 less of alcohol in it, and you get Dutchman courage, and then you just want to fight. And they have a lot of barn dances like they in the middle of the farm they put up a tent and then it's a big party, big piss up and big fights and. So my growing up days, because my instructor, he was a street fighter too, and he was a bouncer, and his years as a bouncer, he had never punched someone once. Every time he had a fighter, he used to slap them and knock them out of the slap. Never punched anybody. So every time he stopped a fight with someone, he used to slap them. I tried that a few times, but I thought, no, the fist is better.
It's like a Bas Rutten style, slap them so they don't break your knuckles.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, so I enjoyed that. Even when I came to Australia, because I still had that violent, not like controlled violence. I like that fight. And, I had
They use that as well, eh? Instead of use the finger, they use like that. There was a name for that in Brazil. I forgot the name right now, but there was a name to use like that.
Yeah, the palm.
Yeah. So like when I teach women self-defense, I teach them how to punch, but I teach them more to hit with this, because when they hit with this, they always break their knuckles because they don't know how to hit properly. They always hit someone on the bony part. So a woman, I teach this, good to hit that and straight away in the eyes and things like that, But even in Australia, when I moved over, I had a few fights and a few pub fights, and eventually I mellowed out like the Australians did. I think I must have got a bit older. But, so I started to give up street fighting while I'm on a winning streak.
Before you got too old to compete with young guys. Yeah.
That's why I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because
what made you start Jiu-Jitsu?
I've always wanted to do it when I first heard about it, and I thought, geez, this will really come well with my karate, because we don't do much groundwork in karate,
Sure.
And because all of us, we believe in one punch, one kill. So when you start a fight, you finish it there and there. You don't carry on with it down to the floor, So we don't go that far. But then I just loved it, because I did Japanese jiu-jitsu for a long time, and we didn't do any groundwork. And the teacher I had, he was he did karate, because a lot of the Japanese jiu-jitsu, they either have taekwondo or kung fu or something, and then they teach that as part of their jiu-jitsu
curriculum.
And whereas the guy I had, he was a karate guy, so he didn't teach me much karate, but I taught him a lot of karate. So we did a lot of judo stuff, like throwing and break falls, and a lot of weapons and more controlling people, like for security work and things like that,
Subduing people and stuff.
So that type of stuff. And then because I was so full on with the karate and all that, I never had time to actually come to jiu-jitsu. And then I became unemployed one day, and I had time on my hand. I thought, this is it. And then I came around and saw it, because when I do something in martial arts, it must be with someone that's up there, I don't go to the cheapest person. I'd rather write an hour to someone that's
knows what they're doing.
Like I went to a few clubs, and the guys are there on their phones, they're watching their watches, and I thought, this is not what I wanted. When I came here, I thought, this is good, And,
do you think, Petrus, nowadays, after many years teaching, I find that I can go at any kind of class instruction, right? Could be Pilates or could be yoga, and I can really quick grasp if that person, even though I don't have much knowledge of what's going to be shown, if they have experience of what they're doing or not. Do you feel that way as well?
Yes. As soon as they do something on the floor, you can see straight away what type of person I am.
Exactly.
I think, like you're saying, with anything, whether it's like even how somebody makes coffees or whatever, you can tell from the beginning, from right at the point of meeting the person, how they carry themselves, whether it's congruent, if it's real, the thing that they're promoting is real.
Even in street fighting, like you look at someone and say, I could start a fight with this guy. They have like an aura around them, and that aura is like, don't get in that space, Like when I was street fighting in Newcastle where I did my apprentice, there was one guy, that short guy, much smaller than me, gingerhead guy, and he's a wrestler, and I stayed away from him because he was just, something about him was deadly, And a lot of fights he used to beat a lot of the people up on the ground because he was a wrestler. So he just had this aura around him, was like, stay away from him, and I did stay away from him, So.
Do you know, like the other one that I have as well, like and I have that very accurate, I think, like when you start training with someone, you just started training. This, I think, is the because of many years. That's what I'm asking if you have that as well when you start like sparring with someone. As soon as you kind of have a feel on what the guy's gonna be about. You know what I mean? If the guy's gonna be technical, if the guy's gonna be like a brawler, if the guy just wanna, go rough. You know what I mean? You kind of have a sense in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I say, like as soon as the guy starts, even like before you start fighting, because maybe we do a bit of basics before we start fighting, and the way he moves in his stances, all that in his basics, that normally they filter through to the fighting, because without the basics you won't have good fighting. So the basics is normally equivalent to the fighting. If they've got bad basics, they've got bad fighting technique. So you normally straight away you'll do that. But in JKA. Like when you're a black belt, like my level, like I'm a 6th dan in karate, and if you walk into another dojo with another 6th dan, you know this is going to be equal fight. But if I walk in a dojo and there's a 3rd dan or 1st dan, I know I'm going to use him as a punch bag, unless he's like a world champion or something like that. But normally, like a jiu-jitsu, if you come across a black belt, he's a black belt.
Yeah.
You come across a blue belt, you know he's a blue belt.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not, I think, a lot of martial arts kind of, as they get more commercial, that isn't as effective, like you're saying.
Because there's more having black belts on the floor to entice other people to come. Same as that style that started off the door knocking, go kangaroo. When they started off in Australia, they used to go knock on the door, sign people up, and guarantee if you come join them within 3 months, you'll have a brown belt. 6 months, you'll have a black belt, and you can open up your own dojo,
I think back on the day, the martial arts, they had that initiation that started with survival, right? They had a much more accurate way to grade people. So for example, this is clear in my mind, like you to be a purple belt, man, you need to put people, and they have to do at the gym, you need to put people down. There's going to be like champions, man, state champion boxers will put gloves, you're going to line up and you have to put the guy down. It doesn't matter how long you're going to take. You're going to get bashed. You might get knocked out. You're going to come back up. You know what I mean? Have to put them down, dominated, boom, you need to know some boxing as well. You have to have some skills. You know what I mean? You have to be in the middle of like people open hand, but everyone's smashing each other. There's a lot of different scenarios that were like recreated that you have to achieve. There wouldn't be this like, okay, guys, well, how long is your fight in a competition? Okay, 7 minutes. Okay, trains will be only 7 minutes. No, man. One day the coach will go, man, me and you, half an hour. That's it.
Yeah.
There's but today I'm tired because I went to school and I surfed. You don't care. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean,
if I say that.
If I look like my black belt grading, even my Q gradings, my color belt grading, it was hard work. We used to shit ourselves to go grading because you knew that guy would go for grading, and we both have to impress him. Yeah. We got to go for it. We go for each other. There's no.
It was a real fight.
But you got to impress the examiner.
I think this is one of the biggest challenges that actually martial arts have is to keep this line. I always said that between commercial, and martial arts. This is a very, very narrow line that you have to try to keep it in the middle.
It's not easy to balance, man.
It's super hard to balance.
Either it's too serious and people don't like it, and like you're saying, they leave like the sparring. You had 50 one day, 10 the next, and then it'll disappear. Or you become too commercial and you're not really teaching anyone anything effective.
And you're just getting belts to get, money, have more people on the floor. And you have to really be... you have to work on that, you know what I mean, hard, you know what I mean, very diligently, because it's a very hard thing to achieve,
Yeah, that's why.
And the bigger it gets, actually, the more popular it gets, the harder it gets, because people have feelings and they feel more upset, and you can't care about that. You have to care about the art, care about what you know what I mean, what you try to achieve.
Yeah, like in our days of grading, it was always done closed doors.
Yeah.
Like, your parents weren't allowed to watch it, they had to stay outside. Nowadays it's all open. But like I say, a lot of karate, they've sort of gone to the sports side, so they're more about competition, getting medals and all that stuff,
Jiu-jitsu is the same though.
Yeah, so you basically fight the rules, And whereas, I still try not fight the rules. I still try to teach street fighting ways, But keeping the traditional side in there, because without that traditional technique, that street fight won't work. So you have to still.
Yeah, there's still technical scenarios.
Yeah.
Same with jiu-jitsu. This works because of this. This works because of this. This is how it works based on an anatomy, based on timing, based on concepts and leverage and on.
Because, 100% of people, I'll say 99.9% of people who walk in my dojo to start, and I ask them why you want to do it. Oh, they need fitness and self-defense. None of them come to me and say, they want to do competition, So I don't emphasize on competition. I emphasize more on the training side of it,
Yeah. It's I think it's same, like not many people, like if you have a look at the whole there's data from International BJJ Federation where it's like 3% of all the practitioners actually compete, so it's
a small minority of people, 100%. Yeah, you shouldn't gear, but like the problem is like most gyms are really geared towards that now. They are geared towards the point systems of it, whether it's karate or jiu-jitsu.
But there's another thing as well. For example, Petrus, do you think because you were geared for self-defense, you geared like for the actual reality, that the moves that you had were more effective, they're more like foundational, they're more base, but people do that so well that and it's quick, sharp, you know what I mean? It's easy to perform. And because once become more focused on sport, there's all these flowery, these kind of moves that are like, does it happen to karate as well?
Yeah, you get like I got one student like that. He's a brown belt and he's very supple. So he lifts his legs straight up there, and I keep on telling him, mate, that's show. Don't do that, Keep your legs straight, kick where you want to kick down there, not keep your foot up in the air.
It's not a show, like it's not like a ballet.
I said to him, that looks beautiful, but me as a karate person, it's useless, It's not going to work.
Unless you're doing an exhibition show or something, it's not going to be effective for you.
Yeah.
That's why when I teach, I don't teach a lot of kicks. I teach them all the kicks because they have to know it. But a lot of times, especially in street fight, if your one leg is with the floor, you're going to fall over. So you always try to keep your 2 feet on the floor, Because in a street fight, for some reason, a person who doesn't do martial arts, if you kick them, it's just a natural reaction for them to grab your foot, And they do that, and if you end up on the floor, they can take a rock and bash your head in.
But that's like a statistical thing as well. Like they that's why people were promoting jiu-jitsu so much for self-defense, because through a lot of police reports and stuff like that in the US and other countries and stuff, they were like, out of the 10 fights that they have that are altercations in the street, 8 or 9 of them end up in the scramble on the ground. Man, like people that don't know anything, it becomes a scramble. Now, I'm not saying that you should scramble with people on the ground wrestle, man. If he's got friends that can kick you in the head or whatever, but that's why that was like one of the points that people that were teaching jiu-jitsu and promoting is like, you're going to end up there, so you better know what to do, whether it's to get up off your feet, submit the guy, whatever, and get the hell out of there. So.
It's basically, if he gets to go there, Christmas, it's Christmas, you feel at home, it's awesome. You don't want to go there.
You don't want to go there, man, otherwise someone will step on your head.
Like with my training, what I do with some of the guys, when because I don't teach them, I try to avoid teaching fighting when they lower grades, because they just pick up bad habits. Once they get a habit, it's hard to get out of it. So what I do with the senior people now in the games, I put 3 or 4 people against him. I say, right, fight. And then they realize how hard it is to fight multiple type of people. That's what I say to a lot of them. If you can get out of a fight with 4 or 5 people, you get out of it. But you're not getting lost. And then once they go on the floor, that's the 4 or 5 people you get hurt. And but that's what I liked about the jiu-jitsu side of when I started learning it. Also, because of my age and because I got tired of chasing the guys, and I'd rather put them on the floor and sit on them. So even nowadays, I haven't fought for quite a while in those because of my things there. So when I fight them, I always put them on the floor and sit on them, side control, or just put my knee on them, because they don't know.
They don't know how to escape.
They don't know how to escape from it. So,
Petrus, were you, like, as a coach, right, you had some students that actually travel to other countries, for competitions, and you travel many times coaching or seminars, etc. And I know you've been to many countries, and one of them was Japan, right?
Yeah.
What did you think about the differences? Like, because we've been to Japan for training jiu-jitsu, and we were all amazed with the culture, you know what I mean, and respect towards teachers and coaches, and respect to the art and all that. It's nice to have that understanding, you know, the deep understanding what martial arts is. What's your opinion about that?
Well, if you're teaching a traditional sport, you should be going there to learn traditional and the culture side of it, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't speak Japanese, so we use Japanese terminology. But I love going to Japan because, number one, it keeps, I learn from it. So when I come back, my students can learn from what I've learned, you know. A lot of people who break away from a good style or good affiliation, they end up getting weak because the instructor only teach what he knows. You guys can't teach anymore, you know. Whereas if you keep on going to Japan, you keep learning because they have full-time instructors that's all they do is teach train from the moment they wake up to when they go to bed. That's all they do, and they try to perfect the art more and more and more, you know. They don't try to reinvent the wheel, but they just try to make it more perfect, you know?
Refine.
Yeah.
Refine.
Yeah. Like in the old days, we didn't emphasize so much on the hips and things like that, which is a fundamental part of karate, you know? We just focus on the fighting side of it, you know? And then eventually, like the Japanese, the younger generation coming through, they made it more technical. So when we go to Japan, we learn
deepen the understanding.
Yeah, so when we go there, in the beginning when we went to Japan, it was more of a beat-up session because the Japanese beat up all the Westerns, you know. But now when we go overseas, like I go once a year. I used to go twice a year, but I go once a year, and then it's like mainly for instructors. So it's not to go there and get beaten up. It's to go there and learn from all those in-house instructors and take notes back of what their understanding is of certain techniques and certain bunkai, which is application to kata. Kata is a form that we do set sort of sequences.
Yeah, like a rehearsed movement.
Yeah, moving. It's like shadow boxing to boxers.
Yeah.
So if you want to train, when you've got a partner, you do your katas. And in your kata, every single movement has an application, has a meaning to it, as in a self-defense move and things like that. So they refine. Sometimes they do things, and because I know a bit of jiu-jitsu, and I think to myself, that's not going to work, you know. I've tried that a few times, and it's not going to work on the floor, you know, especially against you guys and things like that, you know. And but a lot of the stuff they do makes a lot of sense. And when I learn something, it must make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not going to teach it, you know, because I see the other side of it, and that's not going to work, you know.
Yeah. Something that I do want to talk about is, you just talked about it then with the katas and stuff like that. So most martial arts have some type of movement practice, whether it be katas, whether it be, you know, just head movement for boxing, or, you know, certain straight punches or whatever without somebody else, bag work, whatever. Jiu-jitsu has the same thing in like animal movements and solo drills and stuff like that. When you get like new students in, is that what they all start with?
It was, as I walk in the field, the first thing they learn is tradition side of it, who's in the zoo, what to do, the courtesy side of it. Things like. So once they learn that, then you start from the bottom, is how to make it first, how to...
Like on a technical level though, is that something that is focused on for people that are starting the art or not really?
Yeah. The basic fundamentals of karate.
Yeah.
If they haven't got that foundation, they'll never become a good fighter.
Correct.
You know, so a lot of times when I see their fighting gets a bit sloppy, I stay away from fighting and I go back to the basics, because all their fighting techniques is in the basics or in the kata, huh? So certain moves, we just do it over and over and over and over until they get it right and we go back to fighting.
That's something that I would like to talk about, because to do with jiu-jitsu, and I've talked about it on some of the BJJ101 videos and stuff with solo movements and stuff, is if you can't physically perform the postures, the movements, you don't have the mobility to get into certain postures or movements, you're not going to be able to do any techniques. So it's the same thing with like karate. If you can't do the forms of the kata and move your body like this and do this type of kick or do this type of punch without an opponent, how are you going to do that on somebody else? And I think the same for jiu-jitsu. If you can't physically move your body like this, if you can't do certain generic movements, you're not going to be able to apply it on anybody else. So what's the point of doing live training? What's the point of doing sparring with another person combatively if you can't even move correctly?
How long, Petrus, would take you to a student, like a brand new student, to spar, like roughly speaking?
Normally I keep them away from sparring up till about maybe brown belt, so a couple of years.
Without sparring?
Yeah, because they just...
It's not worth it.
Yeah, they pick up the bad habit. You can't get it out of them, you know. Because karate is like a triangle, you know.
Yeah.
And each one is equal. So you have to do basics equally. You have to do kata base, and you have to do fighting. The only fighting they do is what we call nomination fighting.
Yeah.
Where it's controlled. You do basic attack and then basic
simulated kind of.
Yeah, so it's not like free fighting. Because once you do free fighting, if you have a bad foot and your foot facing this all the time instead of this way, when you start fighting, your foot's going to be that way, and you won't be able to do certain techniques, and you're always going to be caught flat-footed until you can get your feet and your posture.
You have to
in the right
retrain
direction.
yourself. Yeah.
So
that's something that I just want to mention about jiu-jitsu, because in jiu-jitsu that's uncommon to do that. It's uncommon for people to spend a year just doing techniques, just doing drills, just doing animal movements, katas, whatever. They don't do that. All we do, and this is something that, you know, Hicks and Gracie's talked about before and stuff as well, is like, you know, we'll do, you know, 2 weeks of this and that. All right, go there in the deep end, go and see what happens. I think that, look, it can work for some people, but for most people, it's such a stressful and uncomfortable situation. You're right. What they do is they start, you know, doing bad habits. They start developing, you know, oh, I'm afraid, I don't want to do that. They get fearful already, so they're not even happy to exchange and stuff like that. And actually, like, makes people retract into their shell a little bit, and it damages their kind of progression. And I just think it's interesting, that question that you asked is like you guys do for a full 2 years of no sparring or no competitive sparring. I think it's
I agree with you.
And the thing is, if they start sparring early, they get hurt. They don't want to do them.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is get your student to get hurt, you know. So our type of fighting we have is what we call Sanbon, Gohan Kumite, Jiu Ippon, and then Jiu Kumite, which is the Jiu, it's a free fighting, everything goes. But all these other ones is all controlled, like
partial trainings, you would say.
Yeah,
like,
so basically you get down in basic stance, you throw a punch, and do basic block and counter. Because in that stuff, you learn your main things that make a good fighter, which is your timing, your distance, and your focus. Those are the three main things that make a good fighter. If you can't perfect those things, you never become a good fighter. And those three things, when you do the five basic type of fighting, it filters through to your main fighting.
That's how I learned at the beginning, like for like, instead of putting straight to a full training where, let's say you have like 3 classes of 4, you don't know many of the puzzle positions that you're going to fall into, so you have no knowledge to perform anything, or totally overwhelming. You do a partial training, so you learn how to pass. You learn how to pass and how to defend guard or one sweep. All right, this is the partial training. Open here and pass here. You know, both have knowledge. There you go. Because I think what you're saying about the triangle is super interesting. Like, so we're looking at the bottom, which is the biggest part of the triangle. That's where they're going to spend most of their time. And that's where they're going to do most of that technique here with the foundation, correct?
Yeah, so the triangle is equal triangle.
Yeah.
So the equal triangle is all equal angled. So they all get trained equally, the amount the same.
It's saying that there's 3 main things you have to focus on. And if you go straight to live sparring or whatever, you're only focusing on one point of the triangle.
So you do, and when I talk about fighting, they don't fight for 3 or 5 years. They're not physically fighting, but they're doing basic fighting where they nominate, so they can learn. Okay, punches coming to my head, I'm going to have to do this and that, and they get more advanced and they might do shoots and sweep.
But yeah, it's the same as like a positional sparring in jiu-jitsu where you only focus on, all right, it's just passing or sweeping. It's just escaping submissions or submitting them. It's just la 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 la. Yeah.
My view, and I haven't changed my view. Like it's this, and I wanted to see if you agree with that for karate. For example, back on the day, people drill like, so. Let's say you got side control. You're gonna do your kimura. You're gonna do your amba. You're gonna do 1 or 2 chokes. You know, plus transitions. Get to mount. You know, so you get really good at doing that. You get really good at understand, because you're gonna do so proficient, and you're gonna be like doing that so well that you can hold the guy. You know what I mean? You don't let the guy come out. Like, you're extremely good at it. And then we're talking about years of doing that. You know, like passing the guy this way or that way. Like, you get so good at it. later on, you have that understanding and the ability to start and going to classes, etc., and exchanging with people and coaches, you add something. But the foundation is super strong. So it's super easy to add things and be proficient at them. But I think people now wanted to jump steps, you know what I mean? Want to go straight to something that looks nice, or that someone showed them because it's also flowery. It's almost like going to a restaurant, and when you go to a restaurant that does pizza, man, the chances are the pizza is awesome because the guy does that for the whole time. Now you go to a restaurant that does pizza, fish, seafood, and steak. Man, everything's going to be average.
Yeah.
Like nothing's going to be good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you feel that way, or?
Yeah, well, that's the way the karate works. You have to crawl before you can walk. So we don't start walking when they do karate, and they understand it when they walk in the dojo and they start learning, because just to stand and punch is so technical.
Yeah.
It takes them a long time to perfect that. And then you add in a forward stance, and now they've got 20 other elements to think of, plus the other 20 elements have to make a punch. So by the time they get to the fighting stage, the years have gone by. So
I think that's important to note, because like most of the Asian martial arts, particularly Japanese martial arts, you're going to spend a year of your time, minimum probably, just doing basic things. Like the same thing when we went to Japan, all the main judo guys that were there, they're like, oh, you want to go to the Kodokan? Yeah, the main judo arena where they all train and all this stuff. Okay, you know what you're going to do for the first year? You're going to break fall. That's what you're going to do for a year. You're going to learn how to fall properly so you don't injure yourself when you fall. And then after that, maybe you'll start practicing some maneuvers and throws. But most people aren't willing to go through that first year or first 2 years of just building foundation. And particularly in Western countries, and we had Jim in here a couple of weeks ago talk about the same thing. Like most of the martial arts either had like a white belt and a black belt. There was 2 belts, or they had 2 or 3 belts. Like even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when it started, you were a white belt, a black belt, or a navy belt, and the navy belt meant you're an instructor. Everybody else was a white belt or a black belt. The different colored belt system is a Western convention to be like, oh, well done, good job, here you go. Yeah, correct. Yeah. To keep them there. And
absolutely.
I find it inspiring, and I find it, interesting to think about in, like, especially in the Japanese culture where, man, they don't deviate based on how you feel. This is how it is, man.
Yeah.
You're going to do a year first before you do anything else.
I remember when I started traveling overseas, because in Japan it's not a white belt, it's a black belt.
Yeah.
When you're in the university, you get the white belt, and then the black belt is first dan or second dan. When they're out of the university and they go train at the main dojo, they start over again.
Yeah.
So a touring Japanese team came over to Australia, and they were all white belts. And the guy said, geez, we could fight all these white belts. And I said, you wait and see. And they walked on the floor, and they just wiped them all up, because their white belt is equivalent to our second, third dan. These university kids, they train 7 days a week and 3 times a day. So that's the subject that they do at university. And they are so deadly, it's unbelievable. So when they walk around the white belt, people like Australia think, it's just a white belt.
No, that's not a white belt.
Yeah.
And that's really about giving foundation and make the build on the foundation there, because they become like so good at that. Like you can have a blue belt like that will do really well against anyone. You know what I mean? Basically.
That's something we've talked about with people before as well, like Fred. You remember Fred was talking about how when he started, man, he would just submit everyone with a triangle. He was so good at the triangle. He had a black belt level triangle. And then you can have guys that are like, kids, or you can have guys that are blue belts that can actually finish and submit a black belt. But they don't have the understanding, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the ability to teach, they don't have the ability to understand. They're just good at applying one area of jiu-jitsu. Sure. And I think that's actually been lost a lot as things become more modern. Even people that you're talking about, like, people focus on so much more about appearance and vision and, like, how am I going to be perceived rather than actually being effective. Like, what the hell, man? That's the whole point you came here, to be effective, to get fitter, to defend yourself. Doing a high kick like this, or doing a pirouette, or being able to roll over your back or do a backflip or whatever, what does that change? It doesn't change anything. But people really focus on that stuff more now, especially in Western countries, because the whole society is based around
That's sad for martial arts, because people are thinking that it's about ticking box.
Yeah.
Oh, what is this position? And you go show them, they're like, they don't even drill it. They don't even try to do in training. They just it's like they want to please you, but they just lying to themselves. And the next day they come, oh, how about this one? It's like, man, you haven't even drew that one. You haven't even done that one you asked yesterday. You know, what are you doing, man? Is ticking boxes like we're doing, you know?
100%.
It's fake, man.
Yeah, and that's why, like you guys do, you have your beginners class and intermediate advanced classes. And it's so important to have that, you know, because it's no use trying to teach someone to walk before they can crawl, you know.
Yeah.
So they have to learn the fundamentals before they start.
We do it similar, but I believe that probably the sparring component for people that are pure beginners should be delayed a little more than we do even here.
Yes, absolutely.
The more, because again, like, what's the point of
reviewing that?
You know what I mean? Like, all right, you can't really swim well. Here's the pool. Oh shit, man, the guy's gonna drown, and that's what happens. It's the same idea. It's just that you're not actually drowning. You're just getting destroyed by somebody else, or you. Like, oh, we both don't know what to do. What do we do? And what happens when, let's say you put two really inexperienced guys doing karate, you know what they do? They do crazy shit. They do a haymaker. They do no technique at all. I'm just gonna. You're
gonna see everything except karate.
Yeah,
that's why I hate fighting lower belts, because I get hurt all the time. You know, they just elbows and joints, and they don't know how to flow with you. You know?
I always tell people that the most dangerous training you can do is with a beginner. Man, you don't have a clue what they're gonna do.
It's unpredictable. They have no idea what they're doing either, and it's just completely unpredictable, and you can't be aware of anything. You can't anticipate or control, because they don't have no idea what they're doing.
And I mean that's where, like in jiu-jitsu, it's important to keep like doing a drill over and over. Like us in karate, same thing. Like I won't go further to another technique unless they perfected that one. Otherwise, that mistake that they have there will just filter through to the next one. And by the time they get to black belt, the mistake is so big, you just, like I have black belts that come training me sometimes. And it's just impossible to try to get see the mistake there and try and teach them the technical side of it, because the habit is so much in their brain that they can't get rid of it, you know?
That's something for jiu-jitsu as well. And that's a lot of the time not even to do with technical stuff, with personality and attitude. Like, some people that talk about, they're like, man, sometimes it's not a gift receiving a black belt from another gym or moving here, because, man, they've developed their personality, their attitude, their techniques, everything, the way they behave and you know, and interact in the gym kind of environment is from a different situation. And sometimes, you know, especially with jiu-jitsu, it's so diverse, man. Most people don't actually hold themselves to like a traditional standard of anything. It's just, I'm a black belt, open a gym, that's it. Like, there's no tradition, there's no like this ritualistic thing, whereas, you know, with you're under a specific rule set type of karate where you go and interact with as a group, and you go back to your places later on and teach that thing. That doesn't happen in jiu-jitsu. Nobody's drawing from one idea of stuff. It's just completely personal and individual. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that there's different things that you're going to have negativities of that. It's its own ecosystem, man. If another person comes from another gym and they don't like it, they're going to go. Or if another person comes here and tries to make it the way that it's not going to fit. Like, this is its own ecosystem, because you're not drawing from anything bigger.
And there is the terrible mindset as well, which is about that thing about ticking box, like, which is like, oh, I got this belt, so I'm at this level now, and then I'm not going to learn from this person, or I'm not learning from this experience because I'm this level. This entitlement is so dumb and stupid, right? Because it takes the opportunity for you to be open-minded, because that's where you're actually going to start to understand, you know, like in Brazil, we say you only get a black belt, man, you just start learning jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean?
And that's like those guys from the university that go back to a white belt, you know what I mean? It's the same idea.
I learn a lot of stuff, like, from any belt. Like, I learn, if a guy is really good at one position, sometimes I haven't seen this position. Jiu-jitsu is so vast. And man, I have no problem whatsoever to ask him, why have you done it? There's as many times as I need. And people have these, I already ticked this box, so I'm not going to ask a blue belt what technique is this, because I'm going to look bad. Man, you're an idiot. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? You're not going to evolve as much as you could. So
that's what always sticks in my mind. I was saying when I started with you used to say to me, jiu-jitsu is like a chess game. You know, you get in one position, you got to try to get out of it, and you're trying to outfox the other person by different moves. You know, and it always sticks in my mind what you say, jiu-jitsu is like a chess game.
Yeah, man. You're just making, but it's the same with karate. It's the same with stand up and stuff like that. Now it might be more intense, or it might be more explosive or dynamic because you're on your feet and you move quicker. But it's the same. Like you're doing the same chess game. There's little intricacies of how you're moving to draw the person in so you can strike them and things like that. And it is a game. It is a playful thing. And the problem is even though it's a game, people play it with emotion rather than the understanding, the logic, and the composure. And I think that bad habit comes from, again, people starting too intense stuff way too early on. Right, which it's not wrong either, because you can start things really intensely early on, but it will probably take you longer to get to a better position, to get to a clearer mind thing. Or you do it the way you're doing, which I think is a better foundation building scenario where, you spend 2 years building the foundation. Now you put people in a position where they're already fairly aware of everything. They kind of understand what things well, and then they can start applying it live. And the people that I notice that are better at jiu-jitsu or that do better, they have removed that emotional component, and it's completely logical and systematic. They're applying the techniques without their own, their own input. You're just using your body as a machine, You're just reacting and moving and doing the things that you need to do, whether it's jiu-jitsu and doing arm drags or, punching a guy in the face or what. But when people react emotionally, or their emotion is involved inside the technique, it ruins it, because you're not performing the movement. You're now trying to do it the way you want to do it. You're trying to force something or create it through how you feel. But it's not about how you feel. This is happening, and you react the way that you need to, or you're going to react the way that's incorrect. And I find always that the more emotional people are, generally, the less effective they are with whatever they're doing. The more logical and the more concise and accurate they are and systematic they are, the more effective they are overall. That's what I believe anyway.
Yeah, and going back to talk about other people coming into the dojo to train. And the thing is, what I tell a lot of people when they walk in, I said, if you don't walk in the dojo with an empty mind, it's full, nothing's going to get in there. When you walk on that floor, this must be empty, True. Then you got to learn,
It's very good.
A lot of times when you get black belts that come through, they train, and in the head, they say, oh, but we taught this, we were taught this, we were taught that. My instructor said me to do this. So then they don't listen to what you're trying to teach them, because already they're fighting you because of what they
something else
know.
before.
And the thing is, like, I had a black belt lady come train me the other night, and she had so many mistakes, it was just like, for me to get it right, I had to start a bit as a white belt again. And then afterwards, because she did some Shotokan style, which was a breakaway, and I said, that's one thing about the JKA is when we go to Japan, we learn things, the whole world, so they standardize everything when we come back again. And she said, oh yeah, we still learn tradition, we learn what Funakoshi taught. And I said to her, you can't teach or learn what he did 70 years ago, People have evolved, techniques have evolved, and body has changed, and so they're still teaching things those years ago which worked for those years, but doesn't work in today's society, So if they, like I said earlier on, if they don't have that international connection where they can go learn, the instructors only get teach what he can teach. Then they're going to go back and refer to books, instead of going to teach and learn from someone that's been practicing that every day and dicing it up and putting it there and put it there and then showing
it is super important.
Yeah.
It is super important.
And that's why I hate teaching other black belts when they come through, because their mind is not empty, they're just full of all
like you
stuff.
said, they're already fighting you before they even, they're coming there to learn from you, and they're fighting you on the thing. And that's funny, there's so many people I get it though, because you're kind of you're highlighting, and we've talked about this before, you even have people that come in here and you're like, I'm paying you to get my ass kicked, and you're like, what? Yeah, you kind of are, but the thing is nobody enjoys the fact that you, whatever martial art it is, it highlights so much your weakest aspects of yourself or your character, you know what I mean? And because you're highlighting that, people get defensive. You know what I mean? They get very defensive. And the fact that you're pointing out, or even just the training that they did with somebody else points out that, you know, they're not very good or they're flawed in certain areas, it's upsetting for people. So their first response is always defensive. I can't believe it. You know, oh well, actually, la, la, la. Do you really think that that's what I was doing? Like, look, man, or whoever it is, look, lady, like, this is not personal. I'm not trying to put you down. I'm not trying to make you out to be this horrible individual or an idiot or whatever. I'm just saying, like, look, this is what happened. This is the situation. And you got two ways you can adapt to this. You can cry. You can go home and you can say, this is crap. I'm never going back to that gym because that guy's an asshole. Or you can go, holy shit, you know what? I think that person's got some truth to what they're saying.
Let me try this.
Let me look into that and see if they're actually telling the truth. And most of the time you're going to find the person's just trying to help you. They're not trying to put you down. They're not trying to make you an asshole or an idiot. They're just trying to help you out. And it's such a weird culture now in Western society. Like, if you do those things now, which is what you should do as a coach, most people are offended or upset and they want to leave. They don't want to be involved with or whatever. And that's where that thing that you talked about before of that line of reality versus, you know, making people feel good and giving them a little pat on the back.
That's why I found, like, when I go do Pilates classes and there's all the ladies, you know, as a minority guys like myself, and they go, hi, you everyone's doing wonderful today, well done, you know, everything's beautiful, you know, like, man, but sometimes you have to talk to people individually, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's coaching, man, it's good for you. It's at the end, if the coach didn't care, he wouldn't talk to you. If he's actually that's the perception of
exactly
school.
right,
if the guy's taking his time to go and tell you because he wants to get you better, this is like, it should be, I think that the Asian cultures do it really well, you know, that respect for the feedback, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Brazilians also take that really well. Like, in some other countries, people go, oh, but you're talking bad about me. Why am I, this is not too hard. No, this is good for you. Like, take it.
And I think also that, like, if people should adopt this idea that, like, man, most of the time, if you're doing great, people aren't going to talk to you that much or tell you or correct you. They're just going to be like, man, good job, whatever. They're not going to have these massive conversations with you. So if you're doing the right thing, man, no, like, conversations is good. It's generally a positive thing. Like, no one's bringing you up or anything or telling you off for doing it. Man, great, you're doing perfect. The problem is, especially in Western societies, like that reward thing of the changing the belt system, is we always need to be patted on the back. We always need to be like, oh, you good boy, good work, your kicks are getting great, well done. And the thing is that's not always necessary, man. But most people feel that way, like, oh, they're not even telling me that I feel good. I'm going to go somewhere else. But they do tell me I feel good, even if the training's worse, even if you're not learning anything, even if they just want to feel good. The thing is, you should feel good about yourself, about your improvement, how the training's going, and you need to focus on this stuff instead of like, oh, the guy didn't tell me that I smelled nice today, or the guy didn't tell me that my kicks are looking better.
Man, I wish,
you know what I mean?
Like, I wish, like, when my coach came here, like, he did a couple seminars and stayed here with us for a week or 10 days, he told me one thing, only one thing. And that's what I think people, like, you don't need to react at the right there. Don't worry about it. Go and think about it, reflect about it. You know what I mean? Like, don't go in the heat of the moment because it might be defensive. You know what I mean? But take it and think about it. Go through it. It might take a couple of days. And then you just think through it. And I wish, sometimes I always thought about that. I probably had the same. I wish I got more feedbacks. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I have people like coaching me more, like, through my life, and going, man, maybe try to do this more, maybe try that, oh, your game is good, maybe add this position here, you know, which I do a lot with Anto. Sometimes I ask, man, I get in this position here, what I do, and he gives me, which is great that I have that people around me now that I can do that, but for a long time, no one have that knowledge here to give me that. But so I love get feedback, man. I wish I can get more feedbacks, you know what I mean?
It's rare for people to seek, input. It's rare for people to seek out feedback on how to improve. It's rare. Like, most people don't want to know, because the thing is a lot of the time it's going to be not so like, oh, coochie coo, everything's great, man. It's going to be what people think is negative. It's not negative, man. The people telling you how to improve and how to do things better is a necessary process to improving. If you just pretend that everything's, rainbows and sunshine all the time, you can't get better. You have to recognize a problem to improve. You have to, man, this is what I did the entire time I did jiu-jitsu. I would go to Abu Dhabi, I'd go somewhere and go, man, everybody's doing barrel roll. I don't know how that shit works, got to do it. You go, oh man, you're not taking it back at all, you're choking wrong, whatever. Oh shit, got to do it. And man, what I'll do is spend 4 or 5 weeks on it, whatever, and start to get good at it.
Sure.
And then from then on, continue to improve and continue to improve. The problem is like most people are so offended by that whatever you say that they go into like a dark place and they get all defensive and they're like, I'm not even going to do jiu-jitsu anymore. Man, this is opportunity to grow, and there's only 2 ways you can approach it. You can go depressed and go, oh man, life sucks, everyone hates me, I'm the worst, and tell yourself that you're a loser and all this stuff. Or you can go, you know what, I'm going to use this opportunity and I'm going to get even better than the guy said, or I'm going to prove them wrong, whatever. I don't care how you do it. Just choose to, man, get better. Use it as an opportunity to improve rather than to, oh, life sucks, wah.
And people think that the advice in jiu-jitsu, a lot of people that doesn't know how to take feedback, they think of feedback is come with like a recipe of a cake and go, okay, oh, get the gi here and do this. Like, no, maybe you need to pass more to the left. Maybe you're not taking people's back at all. You the position's there, you're not going for this position, you know? Maybe you have to try to sweep to the left more, you only sweep to the right, you know what I mean? Like things that are like, that you open once you address, you get so much better than only having one position.
I think people could really figure out themselves more opportunities or more options if they actually analyze, though. You know what I mean? People will listen to your feedback a lot of the time and they'll just either ignore it or they'll do that whole depressed, like, oh, and feel bad about themselves. A lot of the people, the best way to deal with it for them, because they don't want to feel bad, and nobody does. I don't want to feel bad. I don't want you to tell me that I'm shit at jiu-jitsu, I'm doing this stuff wrong, but it's a necessary process to improve.
True.
And the thing is they'll do so many different tactics to just avoid accountability or avoid responsibility for it. Because you know what? It feels bad. Oh, it feels bad. I'm not going to feel bad today. Not today.
And especially me. Look at me and my belt.
Yeah, I got my belt. I got a brown belt today. Or I got a black belt from another gym.
Yesterday.
It's like touching on what you said earlier, is like in karate and other sports, like if the instructor is picking on you all the time, it's because he notices you.
Yeah.
If they don't pick on me, they're not noticed. I always tell my students, feel proud if I moan at you.
Exactly.
I moan at you for a good reason, not like I said, to down you. It's because I notice you and I notice your mistake.
And
I
see
want
potential.
You to be better.
Yeah, this is something also that most of the people that you do not pick on, but you kind of fixate on and focus on, is you see that they have a bigger potential, they have a better capacity to do things better or whatever. They're already doing so many things well. They're doing already so many different other areas in such a good foundation or whatever. And you go, oh, look, man, if you just change this one thing, it's going to improve. If you change this one thing, it's going to get better. Yeah.
But what I realized, Petrus, nowadays, like after years teaching, is that there's people that are not willing to open their mind and receive this information. So I'm not going to waste the precious. I have to focus on someone that's willing to take that and go and try to do it. Otherwise, my input is not going to make any difference. I can give input to someone that will make a difference. So that's why it's so important as a student to have an open mind and to accept this criticism, this constructive criticism, because you're just going to get benefits out of it. Otherwise, the coach is going to focus on someone else because you're going to be not taking nothing, not making nothing with it, and it's a waste for the coach.
I always struggle with that. When I first started coaching, I would always try to force people to get it right, but it doesn't work.
Because you think people will take it.
Because man, I was like, man, these guys are not getting good. You need to get good. This is the point that I'm here. I'm going to make everybody good. I can't force that.
And that's where I go back to saying, like I tell the students, when you walk in my door, man, make sure you got an empty mind. Don't bring your problems in your head. Otherwise, you're not going to learn, you know. You come in that dojo with an empty mind. You go out with full that output in your head, you know. And the thing is, too, is like, especially in karate, like when they're doing, we're all doing the same movement. So I might pick on one person, and I say to this class and the person, I say, I'm not picking on you. You have the mistake that everybody else has the mistake. So instead of me going to every single person, I'll tell you what you do wrong, and then go for everybody else, you know. And they understand it. They understand that if I'm picking on them, I'm not picking on them. I'm correcting them to make them better. And everybody else is aware that mistake I'm telling him, they have the same.
They're going to notice it in their own.
And I understand that because we're all doing the same set movement 5 times up, 5 times back, and not change another technique. And so by the time we're doing it, that person will have the same mistake as this person. So instead of going and say, do that 20 times, you just say it once to one person and then everybody else understands that their mistake is the same as that person's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Petrus, look, man, it's.
We haven't got to Thailand yet.
I think we can. I think we can do this like for another hour. Easy, Petrus. Especially because we all have a passion for Thailand. We can talk about the Thailand tourism sector.
I first got to do the book before we put that to video.
Yes. Book, Netflix, documentary, and everything.
I must say one thing about what I loved about jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, is you get fit.
The food. Barbecue.
You get fit and you lose weight.
Yeah.
True.
Guaranteed. You know? And when I first joined, I was a bit bigger than I am now, and jiu-jitsu just peeled it off for me. You know? And I'm looking forward to come back again. You know? So,
do you know another thing, Petrus? The other thing good about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you get surrounded by people like yourself, which is a huge pleasure for us to have you. Man, it was always like you're always a fantastic person, a great inspiration. You know what I mean? Like I love to have you at the gym. I hope I'll see you soon again. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it was about time. Let's put it this way.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely about time. Yeah, man.
For me, I think Anto is the same, and I feel so rewarded to have the opportunity to have these conversations. You know what I mean? Like, and like aside from jiu-jitsu, have these deep conversations to people that we appreciate and they have a story to tell, and this stays for the forever. You know what I mean? So, man, I really appreciate you coming today.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I love you guys.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for coming along, man. It's just, yeah, like you said, it's a pleasure to talk your wisdom and man, like a lot of the things about coaching and stuff like that, because man, you've got 50 years of experience of coaching martial arts, man.
That was amazing for us.
People,
there was a lot of like instruction in coaching department as well.
Small ideas
we can take.
That are really interesting and important, and that's the stuff that we've been talking about, starting to implement. And it's even better that you're kind of reinforcing that. It's such an important idea. Yeah,
we always try to improve our methodology. You know what I mean? We always keep trying to improve everything we do. So the great inputs you gave us today, we're going to take it on board. And
and that's the important thing about having someone like you said to tell you your mistakes so you can teach someone.
Absolutely.
That's why I go to Japan. So I learn from them, and I grow, my club grows. You know, if I don't grow, my club's not going to grow.
Absolutely.
So it's a two-way thing. They pay for me to go to Japan, and they pay for me to teach them at home. But for me, it's not about the money. It's more about the glory I get about seeing this person develop from nothing into a mean machine that walks around, this aura around them.
You completely change their personality, their confidence and their attitude and the way they're carrying themselves, and their just joy of life, man, changes because they're not in a position of fear anymore. Man, a lot of people walk around scared, dude. And you take away that fear, you give them power back in life, man. And
that joy is priceless, Petrus. That joy, the companionship, you know what I mean? When you get people that understand and appreciate, like have the gratitude for the input you gave on their lives, man, that's priceless. That's what we want. And
then the downfall about what gets me every time is you take a person 10, 15 years and then they give up. They get the black belt and they give up. All that hard effort I put into you to make you what you are, and you just throw it away. You know?
Yeah, but man, you can't control that. Some people are going to stop.
I know, and it's so hard because you
see the potential and
you just can do nothing about it.
Can do nothing about it. You're right, man. Petrus, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And the coffee was great again.
Coffee was great, mate. And
the water tasted fresh.
Good.
Can't wait to have another coffee with you, my friend.
For sure.
We'll definitely have to have you back and talk about some other stuff and all your travels. Talk about your girlfriends in Switzerland and all around the world and everything. That'll be interesting. All right.
Yeah, your airline Thai Airways partnership you have as well. You know, and all that. Yeah.
Alrighty, Petrus. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. Pleasure, bro.